for Dimension 3.2, Managing Student Behavior. This dimension focuses on how teachers establish, communicate, and maintain clear expectations for student behavior during classroom instruction. One of the teacher's most important responsibilities is managing the classroom effectively, as it has a significant impact on student performance. Managing student behavior is the second dimension in the learning environment domain, Dimension 3.2. The definition for this dimension states the teacher establishes, communicates, and maintains clear expectations for student behavior. Teachers with effective classroom management and management of student conduct create an atmosphere that positively enhances learning, as there are no distractions for students. There is extensive research that supports how managing student behavior affects learning. One key area that is addressed across research studies includes the importance of relationships. The Marzano research states that the quality of teacher-student relationships is the keystone for all other aspects of classroom management. Further, research has shown that teachers who had high-quality relationships with their students had fewer discipline problems and rule violations than those who did not have high-quality relationships. It is also important to note the alignment and consistency of behavior management plans within the system. The overall driver that communicates to all stakeholders the expectations for behavior is the Student Code of Conduct, which is generally adopted at the district level. The campus expectations for student actions are tied to the Student Code of Conduct. Likewise, classroom expectations are also aligned to both the campus expectations and the Student Code of Conduct. We mentioned earlier that the research has shown that the quality of teacher-student relationships is the keystone for all other aspects of classroom management. Further, research has shown that teachers who had high-quality relationships with their students had fewer discipline problems and rule violations than those who did not have quality relationships. Teacher-student relationships provide an essential foundation for effective classroom management, and student management is key to high student achievement. Teacher-student relationships should not be left to chance or dictated by the personalities of those involved. Instead, by using strategies supported by research, teachers can influence the dynamics of their classrooms and build strong teacher-student relationships that will support student learning. Let's think now about some of the behaviors we might see and hear as this dimension is executed during instruction. The teacher interacts with students and establishes a learning environment that maximizes learning and is mutually respectful, collaborative, and safe. Linked to knowledge of students' backgrounds, personal experiences, and developmental needs. Characterized by efficient and effective routines with clear expectations. Flexible to accommodate student diversity and individuality. Supportive of positive interactions with and among students. And maximizes instructional time, transitions, interactions, participation, and a culture of high expectations. How do these behaviors therefore manifest themselves during actual class observations when you are conducting T-test appraisals? We continue to stress that building effective relationships with students is paramount. Teachers can build effective relationships through these strategies. Take a minute to read through each one. Once again, research consistently shows that the relationship between the teachers and students plays a significant role in classroom and student behavior management, and those teachers that have a high quality, respectful relationship with their students have fewer classroom problems. Managing student behavior begins with quality planning, which is connected to Domain 1. Four key considerations for planning include the following. First, with itness. One distinguishing characteristic of excellent classroom managers is their ability to know what students are doing at all times. They are always monitoring the class, keeping eye contact with students. Even when helping an individual student, they've positioned themselves to see the rest of the class and immediately address students who are causing a disruption. The second characteristic is overlapping. Teachers who can overlap are managing several tasks at once, nodding to give one student permission to use the restroom while giving instructions to a group of students in a literature circle, while simultaneously preparing the room for the next classroom activity. The next characteristic is group focus. A key to effective management is getting every student involved in the lesson rather than focusing on just a few. And the last characteristic is movement management. Skillful pacing and transitions also make a huge difference in management effectiveness. Effective teachers make sure that both classroom activities occur at a brisk pace with little opportunities for students to misbehave, and clear instructions are delivered when everyone is listening so students are never confused about what is expected of them. In what ways do teachers in your school exhibit these characteristics? Why is this dimension important? There is a direct correlation between managing student behavior and maximizing instructional time. Positive student behavior is more likely to occur when structures, procedures, and positive reinforcement are carefully and consistently used in classrooms. The Texas Teacher Standards provide the foundation to address what teachers should know and be able to do related to managing student behavior. First, teachers establish, implement, and communicate consistent routines for effective classroom management, including clear expectations for student behavior. Teachers implement behavior management systems to maintain an environment where all students can learn effectively. Teachers maintain a strong culture of individual and group accountability for class expectations. Teachers cultivate student ownership in developing classroom culture and norms. Teachers lead and maintain classrooms where students are actively engaged in learning, as indicated by their level of motivation and on-task behavior. And finally, teachers manage and facilitate groupings in order to maximize student collaboration, participation, and achievement. What opportunities are there on your campus for teachers to self-assess each of these Texas teacher standards in relation to their own practice? Let's now take our learning to the T-TEST rubric and look at Dimension 3.2, Managing Student Behavior. Our focus will be on looking at the descriptors at the proficient through distinguished performance levels of the rubric. For the first continuum of descriptors, an effective classroom arrangement can create the physical learning conditions that support teaching and learning, including clear rules and procedures, along with fair and consistent consequences. This descriptor is tied to the classroom environment, routines, and procedures dimension in that it is critical for teachers to establish and monitor behavior expectations. The teacher should be able to move and transition throughout the classroom to observe all students at all times and monitor their participation and behavior. The second set of descriptors remind us that effective teachers include students in creating, adopting, modeling, reinforcing, and maintaining classroom behavior standards. All students are held accountable for consistent implementation of these standards, with both teacher and student feedback used to keep all students focused on the expectations. Teachers interact with students in respectful ways at all times, maintaining a physically and emotionally safe, supportive learning environment that is characterized by efficient and effective routines, clear expectations for student behavior, and organization that maximizes student learning at all times. As we work on cultivating a culture of reflective practitioners, this screen shows us potential questions to think about from an appraiser and teacher perspective. Take a minute to read through these questions. These questions help guide decision making for both appraisers and teachers before, during, and after the lesson as they relate to behavior management in classrooms. In thinking about T-tests in practice, let's look at what teachers do. Teachers cultivate student ownership in developing the classroom culture and norms. Teachers implement behavior management systems by involving students in the process. These systems establish and maintain an environment where all students learn at peak levels. Teachers maintain a strong culture of individual and group accountability for classroom expectations for behavior. Additional practices include respectful relationships are evident with all classroom interactions, teacher to student and student to student, where effort and achievement is recognized and affirmed. Teachers maximize instructional time, including managing transitions before, during, and after the lesson. As part of the learning environment, teachers manage and facilitate groupings in order to maximize student collaboration, participation, and achievement. How are these practices reflected in what teachers do in your school? Pulling this together, let's look at additional questions to help guide appraisers. Read through these individually. What other questions might you ask to help teachers establish and maintain behavior management systems that are effective and efficient in their own classrooms? In winding down the module, let's review and summarize what we've learned. When managing student behavior, the teacher establishes, communicates, and maintains clear expectations for student behavior. For a teacher to manage student behavior effectively, one must model the expectations and have knowledge of the students in the classroom. Teachers must be aware of and practice a variety of techniques to maintain appropriate behavior. These techniques correlate to students' individual needs. Last but not least, teachers must also know students' interests to motivate them to change behaviors. In pulling back, given what was presented in this module, what are your next steps to grow and develop and support teachers in this area? We want to thank you for participating and look forward to you joining us with the next module.